Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. So this video is going to be a little bit shorter. We are going to be discussing why we are doing this, and there's been some feedback and some things that have been said and been going on, and we kind of just want to discuss some of these topics. And I have Troy with me here today to give some of his opinion and advice. So hey there.
Hi, how you doing, Syria?
I'm good. How's it going?
Pretty good.
Awesome. Yeah. So, I don't think I really realized the fullness of what this all would entail when I started. In my head, I kind of just had a view of like, oh, I'll interview some interesting people and get some stories out there.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought of any kind of like backlash that would be going on, or when the truth actually started coming out, people may not be liking it so much.
Right.
And they may have something else to say.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like when the truth does start coming out, it's not, just like I said, people are not going to like it.
Yep.
I think one of the main things that I've heard from a few people are, why don't you just forgive and move on? I'm like, holy shit, you obviously did not encounter them that much. Like,
right.
I mean, here's the thing, everyone. Yes, there needs to be forgiveness. And if you can get to a place in your life, whatever you've been through, where you can forgive those that have harmed you or situations that you have been, props to you. And that's awesome. Yes. And some of us have gotten to that place. I know for Troy and myself and a few other people, we have mostly, for the most part, forgiven, healed, and tried to move on. But that's not to say there shouldn't be justice for people that were sexually assaulted, physically abused, countless things that went on at this place. Yes. And some people may not be at the place of forgiveness. I've talked with other people where they just are not at that place yet. Mm-hmm. And yes, we all pray that we can get there one day, and by the grace of God, go by me. Holy crap. But so I think, one of the main reasons we are doing this is because the place is still open and still going on. Granted, they only have one student in the rehab part of it now. So I don't know how they're still going, with just having one student, but we just, want people's eyes to be open of the reality of 40 years of things that have been covered up and things that are still going on, and just the realm of all that it entails. I don't know if that makes much sense, Troy, but I'll go ahead and let you speak for a minute.
Yeah, no, I think that's a nation of what you're trying to accomplish. It's not just because we're broken and whiny. It's because this place is still open and running, and there's been no consequences for past abuses. There's been no consequences or justice for present abuses and ongoing abuses. There's been no reaching out as a whole, because I understand that, like, I don't think any of them have a running tally of the people they've harmed. But
do you think it's in the thousands or hundreds?
Good question.
I think it might be
over 40 years. I'm sure there has been at least mild abuse in the thousands, 1,000. Some of the more harsh stories, I'm sure it's close. Some of the stories that you've covered, my story and many other stories, my mom's included, and Pam's, and because I can use the names that have been on your show. Those stories are not one-offs. There's just, we happen to be the people that told those stories. And I think that needs to be understood, is that we're not just broken and bent out of shape. Some of us took years to process that, our past, our interactions, and the abuse that we endured, to figure out, okay, how am I supposed to function in society when I have a scar this big? I mean, we talked about it a little bit on the podcast that I did with you. The scar that place left in my life, or the wound that place before it healed, I couldn't talk with you. and you never did anything to me. You never did any harm
I
to
don't think
me.
you didn't talk with any of us.
Yeah, I didn't.
You just had no communication with any of us.
So,
But when we reconciled again, it's been like 2 years now, I think.
mhm.
Like 2 years. Yeah, when we all reconciled, and it was me, you, Nicole, and I think one or two other people. But
Mhm.
you realize that, man, what was I missing here? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was so afraid of being hurt again. I kept
Mhm,
people at a distance that were mildly related to the place that hurt me. And I think that recognizing that that level of pain is not unique to me and not unique to you, and that the stories that we're telling are not to um, no, let me rephrase that. The stories that we're telling are to give people a voice that had lost it, are to give people connection where they had lost it, are to give people a chance at processing. Um, Humans don't process well internally. We hold things and they fester, but when we get to a chance to express it and get feedback from someone that actually cares for us, I think that that helps that healing process along. That's what
mhm.
we're doing here, and I think that you've done an amazing job thus far, and I hope that this continues, and I hope more people see the benefit of finding their voice again. One of the feedbacks that I get from almost anybody that I've talked to that has shared their story on your YouTube channel is that after they finish, they feel like a weight has been lifted off their shoulders, and that they have found courage again and found boldness again. And to someone that has lived 20 years without it, that's a huge step forward. And so yeah, continue doing what you're doing. So that would be my side of it for this part of the conversation. So go ahead. You pick up where I left off.
Well, thank you so much. It's definitely an encouragement. And one of the reasons I really haven't shared this that much, but one of the more personal reasons I did this was for my sister and for other girls that were assaulted,
Mhm.
that like all this stuff has been just covered over just all these years. And we're just now
Mhm.
starting to talk about these things. I
Yeah.
mean, we've kind of mentioned things here and there throughout the years.
Mhm.
Uh,
Rumors. Yeah.
yeah, but even like within my family, it's barely been talked about
Right.
until now. Like things are just like, I think as you get older and older, you just realize like, okay, the past will come up eventually. Like
Yeah.
you gotta,
It's gonna
get
squeeze
there
out somewhere.
and yeah, you got to deal with it, try to heal, try to forgive and stuff. But just like I said, it may take longer for others. And not that I have totally, I hope to God I can really get there one day. I'm not gonna lie, for the most part, I feel like I am, but then like I'll get triggered by something
Yep.
and I'll get so mad and just so pissed. I'm like, damn it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, Jesus, just help me. I need to forgive that person.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. How do I find my center again after something triggers me?
yeah.
Or even if it's innocent and that things that no one intended to trigger me, it just does because it's so close or it's related to the things that I've went through. um that's a difficult place to be in. One of the things I wanted to say about forgiveness, because that's something that keeps getting brought up, is that forgiveness doesn't mean no boundaries. Forgiveness doesn't mean you
Mm,
aren't held accountable. Forgiveness doesn't mean the thing doesn't come out into the light.
mm,
Forgiveness doesn't mean I cover for ongoing abuse. Forgiveness may mean I'm not holding you accountable and expecting payment for what I went through. But that doesn't mean I can't speak out and hope to stop abuse in someone else. And I think that's where I'm at, is that I'm at that point where I think I've forgiven,
mhm.
but I can't stand to see someone else have to go through the process that I went through. I
Yeah.
can't stand the idea that someone could go through what I went through
Mhm.
today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure. How many people do you think are there right now? I would say about 50, if that.
50, like
Oh,
50. No,
Huh?
not even 50. Five
Not
zero?
even 50. I
No.
said 50. Okay, you don't
Oh,
even think 50?
no, not 50, not 50. 15, maybe. 15? Yes.
So, so yeah, I mean, it definitely has really dwindled down and not thriving right now by any means.
Hmm.
But just the fact that it's so open and still going is where we're coming from.
Right.
And when you have experienced the things that we have, you definitely want to see some kind of justice or something happens, stuff
Yeah.
to be brought to the light,
Yeah.
you know.
Something to be brought to the light, and for the, if someone has never suffered any consequences for abusing other people, at a minimum, stopping their ability to influence and abuse other people is as much as justice as I could expect. There's more that could be done. But that's, I don't think that us telling our stories in the way that we're telling our stories is expecting anything other than go, all right, people are still supporting this place. People are still thinking that this place is nothing but good and nothing but wholesome and nothing but upfront. But there's a lot of dark corners, a lot of skeletons in the closet. And all we're doing is, look, not to get preachy, because I know that I have a tendency to do that, but Jesus talks about that they don't come to the light because they love the darkness. If all we're doing is telling our stories and we're getting harsh comments back, all we're doing is telling our stories. All we're doing is exposing what happened to us.
Yeah.
And that's just bringing things into the light, even if it's just bringing into the light for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it might make them look bad, but it may just be, I need to express that. I need to get that into the
Mm-hmm.
light. I need to go, hey, it's no longer just something internal that's eating at me. Now I've placed it in the ether. I can let it go.
Yeah.
Um, there is place for what you're doing there, and necessary. You think about any psychologist that's worth their weight is going to help you relive a story and tell that story in as much detail as possible so that you can process it. That's what they do. And I think that what you're doing is a more natural way of doing it. It's not forced. You're letting people tell their stories. You're asking questions. But in reality, there's a lot of healing that comes with that. And
Yeah.
so I think that you said that from the very beginning. My focus is on healing. And I think that focus is such a good focus to keep you centered when it comes to, I can't imagine the stories that you're hearing from people that don't know if they have the courage to tell their stories, but they're willing to tell you because you've become a voice for the voiceless. I can't imagine the weight that's on your shoulders from that. So,
Oh, I do. I get a ton of messages through Messenger, through email of people with everyone has a story. And you think about, okay, like the few people that are there, 15 to 50, however many it is, right?
right.
Supposedly if they're right and they're telling the truth, so then we have a ex cult page on Facebook with almost 200 people
Mm-hmm.
in this group.
Yeah.
So you're telling me all these people are lying
Yeah. We all got
about,
together, came up with creative ways to say how we were
yeah,
imagined. We imagined abuse. We have 200 plus people, and people that have come and gone to the cult page as well, that are all like, yep, that's something that happened to me too.
yep,
And yeah, we are making it all up. And the 15 people that are left, the faithful frozen chosen are
frozen Joseph.
are the ones that are, they've never done anything wrong. Um, they've there's nothing that they've done worthy of the request for forgiveness, is the way they're saying it, but still demanding that we forgive them. It's one or the other. Either you didn't do anything, or there is something that needs to be forgiven. You can't demand forgiveness and say that we're all insane, say that we're all liars, say that we're all false accusers. It doesn't make sense. Either we're false accusers or you've done something that we need to forgive you for.
That is so true. I have not thought of it like that before. if you're telling us we need to forgive, then also there was something you did to make us need to forgive.
Right.
I have not thought of it like that before. Wow.
Yeah. And it doesn't make sense to me. It's like, if you just take a step back and think about what's being said, it's like that it's a contradictory in terms. And I don't know if people outside or inside that bubble, the 15 frozen chosen, are going to see the inconsistencies because they've been in that inconsistency for 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
So
true. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's all. Like, I was just going to say, like, I just haven't really thought of it like that before. And there was something that we recently saw. I wasn't really going to talk about this, but there was something that we recently saw in of the pastor saying some things. And that was one of the things he was saying about we need to forgive and we need to move on. Even, do you remember the statement he said?
Even if we did it, even if we did those things,
even if we did it, we need to forgive and move on. And like, you're kind of admitting then, right? You're kind of in so many ways admitting to these things.
demanding forgiveness is admitting, and then going back on it and saying, well, we haven't done anything like that. It's just a false accusation. It's like, it's one or the other. Either you did, and maybe you should apologize, and maybe there'll be a whole lot of people that forgive you. Whether you do it one-on-one to every person that you hurt, it's probably unrealistic. Like I said, I don't think any of them is keeping a running tab in a journal about who they hurt and how they hurt them.
I guarantee you, they do not know how many people they've hurt. Like I said, if there's almost 200 people in that Facebook X-Cult page, there's more people that are outside of that page. There's more people that have contacted me because of these videos that have nothing to do with the page or nothing to do with these videos.
Yep.
Like, I mean, countless and countless of people. Some of them I know, some of them I don't know.
Mhm.
And it's just story after story that I'm going, I feel like it just uncovered, what is the phrase? Like a whole can of worms. Like,
yes, you've opened a can of worms.
yeah. And I never thought in a million years that all these things would come out. I knew that a lot of people had different stories and stuff, but I never knew how bad the abuse was or the sexual assault was.
Yep. And you knew the stories that were around you, like the people that you were your age, me, Raquel, your sister, Hannah. You knew those stories, or you knew part of those stories. Like mine, I kept quiet the entire time. But as you're telling the stories of people that were close to you, it's starting to hit more and more people further and further out from the circle of people that you were aware of. And they have very similar stories over an even larger expanse of time. It's like, okay, 30 years of habit, doing things the wrong way, and then we're not that way anymore. Well, if you're not that way anymore, make things right. And I don't know, I mean, we've talked about confession and communion at that church, and how that was a public apology. Well, money where your mouth is. If that's what you expect from everyone else, do the same. Public apology.
That would be funny. They like need to make a public apology to everyone. Like, you're in the hot seat now.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, but that's what it is.
Kidding. I'm totally kidding, by the way, because I would never want to impose, what we went through to go back towards them. I don't know if that makes sense.
Right. I don't think that our ways of doing things should not mimic and mirror their way of doing things.
Yeah.
Because how does that make us any better?
I was just saying I would find it really funny.
Yes. Yes, it'd be quite yes, it would be quite I wouldn't say entertaining, but it would be quite funny to see. All right, why don't you try your own medicine for a change?
Yeah,
see
really,
how it feels. See how humiliating it is to expose yourself and expose your wrongs to public scrutiny. See what it's like. And you know what? Maybe you'll find your voice too. Maybe you'll find absolution for your conscience that is turning you into an alcoholic and a pill popper. Maybe you'll find some absolution.
Yeah.
You did your part, but if you've never done your part, you can't demand forgiveness from anyone.
Mhm.
That's you've never apologized, you've never made it right, you've never reached out, you've never made an attempt, and yet you expect all of us to just let it go.
Mhm.
Well, we know it's ongoing. Sorry, I can't. I'm not. I've forgiven. I don't expect you to do anything. You can't restore what your actions stole from me, but
Mhm.
you can stop doing it to other people and you can apologize.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Yeah, for sure. Not to mention all the cover up of all the sexual assault
Right.
that went on,
Right.
I mean, it's just one after the next, and you've continued for 30 years. I mean,
Mhm.
more like 20 years just to keep covering it up. It's under the
Mhm.
blood of Christ,
Well, I don't think your sister's story is the first one. It's just that your sister's story goes back that far. And I don't think she's the last
Oh
one.
yeah, there was probably stuff before then, but the majority of the stories I've heard have been about 20 years ago.
Gotcha.
There's a few more recent in the past 10 years, I think, but a lot of the ones I've heard have been like within the past 20 years.
Gotcha. I guess when the
But
community is that small, you can't hide it anymore.
who knows how far these things have gone back? I mean, why the heck is the pastor's oldest son? Why would he hurt as many girls as he's hurt?
Yeah.
Assaulted time and he has served time in prison. He has hurt women over and over again.
Mhm.
It started at the cult and then it went on when he moved away. Like, why did that, like, it came from somewhere for him to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
You
something
don't
had to
learn
happen to
that
him.
level of broken sexual gratification. You don't naturally come to that conclusion. That is a
Mhm.
taught thing. Where did he get taught that women
Yep.
are merely his plaything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Good
have
point.
to, like, either you are really screwed up in the head, which is a rare thing. I mean, yes, you can't be screwed up in the head, but usually as a young child, something
Mhm.
happens to you to make you that way.
Yeah, and that may be
Uh,
us um assuming some things, but we're looking at it going, how do you explain this? How do you
yeah,
explain?
it's like, how else do you explain it? Like, what?
Yeah, right.
Like,
How else do you explain that it's not just one of his kids?
means because there was some of the kids that
Oh, yes, sorry.
went through abuse themselves. I think it was more the older ones
Yeah. Okay.
that were a part of, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then that yes, I agree with you. I overstated by saying all. I think a, enough of them that we know stories of, whether or not they've been shared here or not. There's enough of them to go, specifically in the older ones. Why is it that way?
Mhm.
Why is that the way that they pursue that? And whether it's in a violent, abusive side, or whether it's just the promiscuity side, or whether it's the inability to be faithful to the current, it just
Well,
seems something's off, right?
yeah, 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 definitely. But yeah, I mean, that's the main point that I was trying to get at, was just the main reasons that we are doing this is to expose what is going on. And yes, for anyone else out there wanting to say you need to forgive and move on, believe me, if we're not
We're
there, we're trying to
trying.
get there. Like,
We're
it's not
trying.
like, huh?
I said we're trying. It's
Yeah,
not that.
exactly. It's a daily thing. It is a yes. I say that I forgive that person, but then there are times where things get triggered and I may be pissed. Like, everybody goes through things, but that doesn't, it's still, but that's like
Why is the onus and the responsibility on the one that's been harmed to make things right? Why is that? What's the expectation is, you've been harmed.
the people.
Well, just get over
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Why isn't it that the people that were in the position of power, why aren't they called to account? Why am I held accountable for being hurt and trying to process it in the best way that I know how? Why
Yeah,
is
yeah,
it not calling the people that did the abuse and facilitated the abuse and covered up the abuse? Why are those the ones that just leave them alone, don't say anything?
yeah.
Something's up there.
So did they think, I wonder if they thought we would just be quiet for the rest of our lives and like they're really doing the work of God. And then like, well, and then like nothing would ever be said, you know, they would go to their grave just like we did the work of God.
Yeah.
Like if nothing ever came out, you
Yeah.
know what
I
I'm saying?
yeah, no, I think that there was a lot of that. Like the questions that I asked your sister about, did she feel like she was being silenced when having to deal with what she dealt with? And she said yes. And I've talked to quite a few other people. And it seems like when situations that were that questionable and purely wrong came up, a lot of the tactics used were to silence them. I mean, when I found out from um, the one of the family members of the house that I was abused in reached out to me, um, and he had it way worse than I did, because when he said the same thing that I did, what that was going on, he got beat as bad as I did, if not worse, multiple times. And I think that it wasn't whether or not we needed our sin beat out of us. It was whether or not we recognized that if we said anything, we were going to get beat, and keeping our mouths shut. And I think that's the tactic.
Yeah,
And without his story, I only saw it as, well, they had a twisted understanding of scripture, and then they abused it. Was abusive, but they had a good goal. But when I heard his story, it was, no, they were actually trying to silence people. They were trying to silence him so that he didn't point fingers at anyone else. And I
yeah,
think that once you realize that and go, oh, the thing that I went through was only a small sliver of the whole picture that went on during that time. It's like,
yeah.
hmm, maybe it was more about silencing us than it was about dealing with the problems there.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I was so like I think I've said before, like I was just so shy and just so for a long period. Then I kind of started a little bit by little, like stepping out of my comfort zone when we were traveling on Straightway, the drug prevention part. I started becoming more out of my shell, but I still though still wouldn't speak up because I was scared shitless. I was
mhm.
scared that I was gonna get made fun of. I was scared that like
You're
uh
gonna put in the hot
if
seat or
I
light
came,
meeting.
yeah, if I happened to say something in one of the light meetings that maybe didn't fully agree with what they were saying, you would get rained over the coals. You would be
Mhm,
yelled at. You would be told you're going home. Like,
mhm.
you know, yeah, I feel like in every way you were silenced,
Yeah.
whether it was something actually happened to you or you tried to just talk and be a normal person.
Mhm,
I would get made fun of all like just for speaking. Like so I just keep my mouth shut. Like
mm.
I don't want to feel like ashamed and like a loser. So
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And it, the whole culture of meanness, the whole culture of silence, that it's just unhealthy. And there's there's no way of saying, you can't even say it anymore if these things actually happen, because they happened. These are
mhm,
multiple stories over multiple years. This is what happened there. But the if they could keep everybody silenced and not talk to each other, well, then it's, I only have to make sure that so and so stays silent because no one else knows about it. And as long
mhm,
as they stay silent, then it won't get out, and nobody will know the spread of corruption that's going on. But as soon as we start talking, as soon as you started doing this podcast, as soon as we started telling our stories and people started coming out of the woodwork to share their stories, it's like, yeah, we were so ignorant of what was actually going on. my story pales in comparison to some others. Your sisters and your stories are just the tip of the iceberg, and there's so many more stories buried in silence and buried in abuse and buried in psychological conditioning to be silent, that I don't think we'll ever hear all of the stories. And
Yeah.
I hope people have the I hope people can find it in themselves to seek healing and not just bury that dead body in themselves, bury that that event in themselves, because
Yeah.
skeletons have a tendency of falling out of closets, and
One way or another. It's
one way or another, and that's something that they always told us, like,
Mhm.
be sure your sin is going to find you out. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Here's what's happening.
Yeah. When I've reached out to people, to do these interviews, some of the main things I got were that, I've already, like, I've moved on from that in my life and I don't want to go back there.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, like you just, which I get, like, look, what I've said before, to each their own. And if you feel like you cannot process or come to a place of wanting to forgive or heal, you
Mhm.
can't have, only that person can do that themselves and get to that
Yes.
place them.
Can't be forced into it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, I get it. You don't want to do it, but I'm telling you, once you just start opening up, and it doesn't have to be on here. Go to freaking therapy. Like, do things, talk to your community, talk to a best friend, talk to friends, like, to where you can like expose like the things that you've been hurt with and that you've been dealing with.
Yeah.
And
It's
yeah.
extremely important. And yeah, if you're not sharing it in such a public way as we are, share it with someone, share it with a confidant, share it with, if they're a good friend, if they're a good pastor, if they're a good counselor,
Mhm.
you're not the one that they're going to think less of in you telling your story. And they're going to, it's going to be an opportunity for them to lament and mourn with you over the loss that you suffered over time. And I think
Mhm.
that like you said, yeah, you can't force somebody to do it the way that we're doing it, and we wouldn't expect
Yeah.
everyone to do it that way. But at
No, no, no,
least
no. Yeah.
share your story with someone, so that it's not the deep dark chasm that you have to hold on to. I mean, that's why I couldn't talk with you, Syria, was because I was holding that darkness inside of me, and it just didn't have room for you. Once I shared my story, it was like, oh, I've let go of that. I can see Syria again. I can talk with her without being triggered. I can talk with Nicole. I can talk with Hannah. I can talk with the friends that I grew up with
Mhm.
without having this tinge of pain every single time. And I think that that's, if you want that level of healing, you have to tell your story. You don't have to tell it to Syria. You don't have to do this interview, but tell your story to someone. And I
Yeah.
think that that's a that's a big deal. I think that's a I think that's the core of what you're doing. Just giving someone a voice back.
Yeah, for sure. And when you first, 2 years ago, when you first shared your story of what happened on the cult page, you put it on,
Yeah, just a
sorry, I'm
post.
like
Yeah,
going like, you wrote it all out. And
yeah, I
so it
wrote it
wasn't
out.
like on video, it was all written out. And when I will never forget, like, that night that I saw it, I was still with my ex-boyfriend at the time. And I like look at him, and because he knew about like
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff that I had been through. And I looked at him and I go, another one. And I was like, shit. So as soon as I saw this, it just, like, the whole night, I just thought, like, I was just mad. And so I
Mhm.
messaged you. I don't know if you remember, I messaged you right
Yeah.
away. And I think through that, and then through a couple deaths that occurred in the last like four years or whatever, I
Mhm.
just got upset and like, something needs to be done. I mean, are people gonna just continue just to like let this stuff happen?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Is this going to
and
continue till they all just die? And I don't want that either. Like, some of the deaths that have occurred were people that were family to us,
yeah,
and Ellen was a mom to so many of us.
Yeah, she
Uh,
was my godmother.
yeah,
She was
and
another mom figure,
yeah, she was an
you know.
angel. You know,
What?
as best as I could describe her, she's a cherub, an angel.
Yeah.
She was just, if you wanted anybody in your corner, whether you're going through horrible stuff or whether you just want someone to laugh with, Ellen was the person, you know. And so yeah, I think that I don't think we want, I don't think any of us want it just to end and everybody um just growing old and it just falling apart. We want it to resolve, you know. And I don't know if there's anything redeemable at this point. Like I said, I think a lot of people had really good intentions and really good a really good vision for what they were trying to accomplish and what they were serving in. I don't think that's there anymore, you know.
No. Mm-mm.
So
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Kind of just wanted to discuss this a little bit. And actually, I'm going to start season 2 up here in the next couple weeks.
oh,
So
awesome,
there's going to
awesome.
be some more stuff coming out, some more interviews. Hopefully, I'm going to be getting started on some of this social media aspect and everything. So there's going to be a lot more to come. I'm definitely excited. And I just, thank you I know I've said this so many times now, but it really is like, this is not possible unless people are willing to come on and do interviews. So
Yes.
thank you for those of you that have come on and that will be on. And those of you that are thinking and you're just like, not sure. I'm telling you, once you get your story out there, you start to feel way better.
Yes.
And
They may be
yeah,
whispers at first, but when you join them all together, we have a roar.
I don't know what
Sorry, I
that means.
wax poetic sometimes.
Oh, like, I don't know what that means, but okay. But thank y'all so much, and we'll be back soon. Hallelujah, baby Jesus.
Bye.